here's a shot in the dark. I start putting my resume together to send to PGI on the off chance that they're working on something MechWarrior related. Literally the same week, while I'm still getting my stuff together to put a resume together, Brian Ekman emails me out of the blue. Is basically like they noticed, you know, the art that I've been doing for Catalyst and wanted to know if I would be on board.
Did it even dawn on you, like, hey, just FYI, you're literally changing the face of MechWarrior? Oh, you mean like Living Legends? And then I went, oh, that's where I actually met you the first time, because you used to troll the shit. You remember you played Living Legends? You were in the VTOL with like an LRM-20 right at like 900 spawn meters, and you were like warping, or it would literally do this. And so you couldn't like lock on, and you used to like troll the shit out of us playing Living Legends. That was you. Oh my God. I don't know why the Irby made me think of that, and I made that connection, but that's...
So, just for reference, I wasn't trying to troll so much as I was just trying to survive.
Ever wanted one of your favorite machines brought to life and fully finished right out of the box? Well, DOS Print House now offers custom, of course, 3D printing and professional painting. From large display pieces like this 8-inch tall Atlas to smaller miniatures, mechs, tanks, trains, automobiles, whatever you have in mind, they can print it, he can have it painted, and shipped straight to your doorstep. Check out DOS Print House and turn your next idea into something. If you enjoy what we do here at No Guts No Galaxy, from the podcast to daily streams to all the other BattleTech content that we create, consider joining the Mech Bro Battalion. It's the best way to directly support the channel and to help me keep making content for this amazing community. And to our Mech Bro High Command members, Chad, Jeffrey, McJiggles, Asgan, Dark Rogue, Rambancy, thank you for your incredible support. You went above and beyond, so thank you on that. And I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Until next time. Hey, I appreciate you doing this. For everybody who doesn't know, you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
All right. My name is Alex Iglesias. I go by FlyingDebris on the internet. I am a mech artist. I've been doing it for a while. You might know me as the artist that did pretty much all of the mech designs in MWO / MechWarrior 5. And, you know, bunch of book covers for BattleTech, and I've dabbled in all sorts of stuff. But yeah,
dude, I just have to fanboy a little bit, so just you're gonna have to take this. I found you on DeviantArt, which, by the way, I will link to your DeviantArt because you're posting there again. You, Anthony Scroggins, Shimmering Sword, you two were sort of the front runners. You guys were out in front of everybody when it came to sort of modernizing what MechWarrior looks like. And I sort of want to go back in history because you have a lot of different depictions of battle mech art. And the first thing I wanted to ask you was, how did you get into BattleTech? And then when did you start drawing battle mechs and BattleTech stuff? Like, when did that happen?
Let's see. I think the latter question would have to come first. I think I started drawing mechs when I was, God, like 10 years old or something like that. It was like my uncle was the first one in our family to have a gaming PC, and he had gotten MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries, and he had gotten like one of those Prima strategy guides for it, and it happened to have the whole roster of like the Dwayne Luce. It was basically a TRO. It within the strategy guide was effectively a sort of truncated TRO with all the Dwayne Luce drawings. And so while he was playing, I would, you know, read through all of his game manuals and strategy guides and stuff. And so even by that point, you know, I was doing. I like drawing cars. I like drawing tanks and airplanes, and I'd be sitting on the floor, during family gatherings, and I would just have piles of loose leaf paper, and would just be drawing all sorts of stuff. And when I saw these mech designs, I'm like, okay, that's cool, and I would draw my own attempts at mechs, and it was very crude and very very amateurish, but it was just something I enjoyed doing, and it never quite went away. And I whenever when it finally came to the point where my own family got a gaming PC, I started getting into MechWarrior as well, and yeah, I guess I continued drawing it. I think I also played the Sega Genesis, where you drive around in a Mad Cat isometric style, and yeah, I
So
think around.
how old are you?
I am. I was born in '84, so
Okay, yeah, we're 42, or you're about,
yeah,
depending. Yeah, we're the same age. So,
okay.
Similar backgrounds, like how we got into it pretty young. But I remember the booklet too, because basically it was like a gaming manual that had all of the like line art, if you will, of the like straightforward view. It wasn't like the poses or anything, but it was all the clan mechs in that order.
Mm-hmm.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. And also mercenaries and so forth. They all had those game manuals with all the information, which is funny because like there's games now that don't even have CDs. I know that's a big thing going on right now with PlayStation and
with
stuff.
PlayStation.
But, it's like, yeah, it saves them costs because they don't have to print out manuals and ship boxes and stuff. But it's also like
the manuals added a certain vibe to things that it's lost now. It's lost now.
Yeah.
But so let's see. So I drew mechs, just for fun, for giggles as a kid for like a long time, like, well into high school. By the time I got into college, I went to Ringling School of Art and Design, kind of shelved that for a while. I think this was, by the time I was around college age, it was sort of the dark age of BattleTech. Like there was no games for a long time. At best it was like the clicky stuff, and that really didn't interest me. I just bounced right off of those novels when they came out. And I think sometime around my senior year, I decided, I really enjoyed drawing mechs. Why don't I get back into that again? And I started, doing that in earnest, and it was just for fun. And like my senior thesis project, I feel embarrassed to say this because like there's other people do senior thesis projects that involve like all this research and math and all this, actual thinking. And I drew a bunch of pictures and I welded together, this mech sculpture and stuff, and thought myself, oh, it's pretty neat. It was nothing that great, but it got me back in the habit of drawing mechs. And
that's not too embarrassing, I would say, because let me rewind for you. So when because we're the same age, we'd have been in 6th grade. I used to carry around, because I don't know if Sarna was around, or it was I think it might have been Sarna, but like I remember going to the school library and I had a huge like 3.5-inch ring binder, and in the library I printed off pretty much like the timeline of BattleTech. It starts at like sort of modern time, and it goes all the way. I printed it off. I used to carry around and read it. So like I was the like nerd kid that used to just carry around a ring binder reading about battle. Like when I got into BattleTech, which was via the novels, that's how I got into it. It was like it sunk its teeth into man and never let go. And I mean, here we are, years later. Both of our careers have centered around it. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, for something about it, I think it was, I don't know about you, but like me, it was as weird as it sounds, it was almost like a perfect calling to a young kid seeking direction. And a lot of because it's so military sort of oriented, and like, especially the Kerensky trilogy was themed around Phelan, and like how you have to prove that you're the best and you want to be the best and you do what's right and blah blah blah. It was just like I told Stackpole this, that like when I sat down with him, I was like, as stupid as that sounds, I was like, for a 12-year-old and 13-year-old timer, it was like the perfect thing I needed to read and sort of like guide me in a way. I don't know, but like for me, BattleTech has meant a lot. So like I carried around a 3-ring binder and talked to my buddies about X. So
I used to carry around, I think, God, like 7th or 8th grade, I was carrying around like the Field Manual Mercenaries book in my backpack. And because I loved the illustration on the cover. I loved, just flip. I had no idea what any of the rules meant. I had no idea how the game was actually played. I was collecting field manuals and stuff for stuff I had no idea how to actually play, just because I liked reading all the fluff in between. But yeah, like I think through my high school years, I think I read a major chunk of the of like the BattleTech novels, like the major ones, and then like all the weird filler ones as well. That was interesting.
You mentioned the Dark Age. You said you bounced right off of it. I was in the same boat. I got the first. I have a few of the novels, and I did hear that they did get better. But like, to me, what was so disheartening, and I want to see how you feel about it, which is everything you knew. All your characters, for the most part, were dead. They just leapfrogged 60 years, and like, oh, and they retconned like, so like everything you knew about things had changed so much. From your perspective, was it the artwork, or was it the story, or was it a combination of both that you just didn't?
It was kind of a combination of both. Like some of the Dark Age mech shapes just didn't appeal to me. Like they were kind of awkwardly proportioned, or they kind of looked weird. And then the novels, some of them felt like very, very YA, a little bit too much. But yeah,
I agree. To me, it was like the aesthetic was completely off, and it's funny because like I think the Clicks game did well. From like what I heard, a lot of people enjoyed it. I wonder if it was like in today's standards with like your guys' direction of the art, even on Catalyst, because that's probably, it would go through. Like, I think it would do a lot better. Like if that was attempted now to bring sort of like a Click style, I do think the artwork was just so foreign. I mean, so foreign. It's like it didn't encapsulate. I mean, like I said, it was a wrong move, obviously, because it just ostracized the entire fan base of like everything that you knew and loved. And I never did ask, like, I don't know if Stackpole or Jordan Wiseman was like how involved he was or wasn't, or because that was like Whiz Kids, right? That was all the like, it was a weird time. It was a dark time.
Yeah. So, going back to the earlier point. So like around when I got out of college, I was looking for work, and I ended up getting, I forget how this actually happened. Maybe he DM'd me through DeviantArt, or maybe emailed me. I'm not sure. But Michael Valancourt, who was one of the I think the art director on Cthulhu Tech, saw some of my artwork that I'd been posting on DeviantArt, and it's like, hey, would you like to do some illustrations for some of the supplemental books that we're doing? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it was just, a few minor illustrations, like for $100 or so. And afterwards, he would keep pestering me. Hey, are you going to Gen Con? I'm like, no, I don't have any money. Are you going to Gen Con? Are you going to Gen? He's just pestering me for months. Are you going to Gen Con? I'm like, fine, I'm going to Gen Con. Fine, I'll go to Gen Con. And I think 2 weeks beforehand, I forget the name of the actual company that did Cthulhu Tech, but they had switched publishers from Mongoose to Catalyst, and I didn't know anything about Catalyst at the time other than they were the current line holders of BattleTech, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I thought it was just like another Fan Pro or something like that. And I get there, and I had brought my laptop and a Wacom tablet with me to kill time because I figured I was going to be stuck in a booth for hours and hours and hours. And I'm hanging around there, and I see that a bunch of the people in the booth happen to be wearing name tags with very familiar names. And it was like, wait a minute, these are all like, I remember seeing these names in the credits of my old TROs and field manuals and stuff. It's like, oh shit. So I just start drawing a mech right then and there, just like, some design I pulled out of my ass. And Brent Evans, who was the art director at Catalyst at the time, he saw me working on this thing, and he's like, oh, let's give this guy work, basically. And within a month or two later, he's giving me illustration jobs for like book covers and interior art and stuff like that. And it's just kind of been like an ongoing thing that I've just been doing. And also, I should also mention that I guess around my college years, late college years, I was also I guess I found a BattleTech community on 4chan on their games board, and I was doing a lot of my old black and white doodles and stuff were from just shit posting there and doodling and stuff, and that was fun too.
Was that where the furries one came from with the?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm there now. Calm down, furries, if you're out there. It was a long time ago. You should also Google that image. Yeah, I do remember all this. So it was fascinating because, like, there you are. You're growing up with this art. Obviously, you've gone through college. To me, I don't know how old. Like, again, when I sort of discovered your artwork, that would have been circa. It was prior to you working for PGI, so that would have been prior to 2010. Right. Yeah. So, or around thereabouts. So that would have been 2000, DeviantArt 2007, 8. Between then to like, I definitely.
Yeah, that was my starting years, more or less. Yeah.
I think a lot more about the previous like line art and art that was done for BattleTech, but I have to say, I know everybody. It's a special place in our heart. The line art, I get it. Everybody. But some of them were so atrocious back then, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna bash any artists or whatever, but was it like, how did that, do you know how that process worked back then? Have you were they just like given like, hey, here's like $5, just draw this thing, it's got a gun on the right arm?
Yeah, some of them I did talk to a few artists, and I think some of those old TRO illustrations were like $50 a pop type of stuff. So they were done quick.
Because there was a difference between that quality to like the Dugram, which you have a box in the background, and then even the client illustrations were different. They were more round, more just aesthetically pleasing, more detailed, versus all like the previous stuff was just like, bro, how does that mech even walk? Like, what is that? Like, the legs on it, or does that not have a pelvis? Like, how does, and that's one thing that's really stuck in my mind is like the what the artwork used to look like. And when I saw your artwork, it was like, an actual take that makes them look like they could be a real thing, kinesiology wise, just the movement of the legs or torso or arms and proportions and all that. And one thing I really liked, you have that you have a few hunchbacks on your DeviantArt, but the one that's I think it's like in a wintry zone. And one thing I really liked is because like the depiction, and we'll get to like MWO artwork and stuff like that, but just a lot of the mechs, there's this weird thing with mecha is they make them look their proportions too big to me where they can't really move. It's like, that's not, the feet are 3 times the size of the legs. How does it walk, or how does it run, or like, why is everything so bulky and fat? And I don't know. I just, to me, that's always like bothered me. And your artwork and shimmies and was like the first, I was like, aha, like, and then fast forward. So let me ask you, how in the heck and how did PGI approach you? Like, we don't know any of that story. How did that happen? Was it like
I've wrote about it before, but
and when did that start? When did the talking start?
Okay, so let me rewind a bit. I'm kind of all over the place though.
Yeah, not a problem. That's my problem. I apologize.
So around 2009, I'm working at Day One Studios, which oddly enough was also full of like former like Mech Commander, BattleTech Pod, MechWarrior 4 people. But I was working there at the time. It was like it was my first game industry job. I was working on Fracture and as a junior concept artist, and I was also helping out with Fear 3 near like the end of its development. And just it comes across we're working and stuff, and people start sending links around, and we see the trailer for the 2009 Smith and Tinker PGI MechWarrior trailer. And I'm like, why am I working here and not on that? Damn it! And, and I just kind of put that on the back burner and, move on with things. And, fast forward a little bit longer, I'm working at a different company down in Florida. Awful company, just awful. But it was so awful that I was like, screw this. I'm going freelance. And by that point, the original MechWarrior trailer had gone nowhere, and it seems like the idea had fizzled out. And I'm doing freelancing for a while, and I was just doing like BattleTech covers for the most part, and a few other like mobile game illustrations and stuff. And I was like, you know what? Here's a shot in the dark. I start putting my resume together to send to PGI on the off chance that they're working on something MechWarrior related. Literally the same week, while I'm still getting my stuff together to put a resume together, Brian Ekman emails me out of the blue and is basically like, they noticed the art that I've been doing for Catalyst and wanted to know if I would be on board with working on a MechWarrior project. And I'm like, hell yeah. That's exactly what I want. So it was very much the universe provides type of situation. And so that would have been around late 2011, and by 2012 February or so, I moved up to Vancouver and was working in studio.
Oh, as you're getting stuff to send, they reached out. Not surprised. Not surprised at all. Just because, like I said, at the time, if you followed any of your art, you were again, no one else had done what you had done with your illustration, some of the artwork that you were posting. I think, yeah. So that checks out. That's crazy. So you, as you're putting this together, you get an email for Brian Ekman. For those that don't know, Brian Ekman and Russ were partners, I believe, in the founding of, or something like that, as far as Piranha Games. Brian left many, many years ago, but he was active back then. Tall dude, by the way. Yeah. I'm short, whatever. But okay, so
he is pretty tall.
So you went from Florida to Vancouver, which, by the way, to get a job in Canada, you had to be a specialist, basically, because like how their laws, how their laws were, is like, you had to be like, because they had to offer it or be offered to a Canadian that could do, which I can respect, but some ways it's like, like, so okay, so you go up there, what's that like, man? Was it everything you thought it was going to be? Like, how, like, were you just like, holy shit, we're actually doing this? Like, did it even dawn on you, like, hey, just FYI, you're literally changing the face of MechWarrior?
It's one of those weird, like, mental compartmentalization type things, because it's like, on one hand, part of you is like, oh man, I'm so excited, and then like the other hand is like, okay, time to work. It's Monday. What are we doing now? Just boring work stuff, and just kind of grinding at it. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like you sometimes take a step back and it's like, oh, I can't believe we did that, and it's like, and then you just go right back to it. It's weird.
Yeah. So rewind a little bit for those who don't know. Actually, I got to meet you because me and Darren back in the day used to do contract work for PGI. And so we flew up a few times to Vancouver, obviously all the MechCons and stuff. So I've met you and known you at least for many a years. And one of the things that we always said, and it did happen a few times, where we were always like, man, people would love to see the process of like you going from sketching and like, how does that sketch, how do you iterate? And I remember you used to post up images. You'd do like these, I don't know what they're called, but like just quick sort of sketches of like mechs. You'd have like multiple atlases, forms and shapes or whatever. And I'm sure you refined your process, but like but you did record a video of like I think it was the Viper Dragonfly, and you were talking about the different inspirations from attack helicopters, and then you used reference art and stuff. How was that process? How difficult was it to look at old artwork and then capture and sort of move forward? Were they pretty much like anything you did was just you were shit and gold and they just loved it, or was it like how was that? Like which one was the first one? Did you do the Atlas? Was that the first mech that like?
I seem to have there seems to be some disagreement on the timeline. My art director thinks that the Atlas was the first mech I did. I think it was actually the Hunchback, but I'm not quite sure. It was either the Hunchback or the Atlas was the first one.
And did that set the style, like stylistically? Like
kinda, yeah.
Was that the template you were like, or did you set that, or was that your art director, or was that Russ? Like, who said yes, more of that?
Well, originally, like so Dennis DeKonig, the art director, like yeah, he had a whole bunch of ideas as far as like how the mech should look, and I had a whole bunch of ideas on how the mech should look, and we just kind of like, I wouldn't say quite fought, but like, we
He's stubborn. I'll say it. Yeah, I'll say it.
we kind of came to compromises on stuff, and I think it worked out in the end. We like I presented I would usually present a whole bunch of ideas as far as different styles, different shapes, forms that the mechs could take, different way the weapons could look, all this sort of stuff. And he would usually reply back with various notes on the drawing, red marks, text, saying, oh, what about if we do this? What if we do that? And like, there was a lot more back and forth early on. And then over time, it was just like, okay, Alex, just do the mech, basically. Like, yeah, I just sort of fell into a groove after a while, and yeah, there wasn't that much back and forth, I guess, later on.
Yeah. He got off your shoulder and just let you do your thing.
Yeah.
Understood.
I mean, I would have to sometimes stop and like. Sometimes I would have to stop and make requests of the art team of like, okay, I know that we make our guns look a certain way, or we have a certain process for this, but this one mech is special. Can we make an exception for this one, or can we add flaps to this? On the missile launchers, or this one variant is known for looking a certain way. Can we do something special for this one? And sometimes I'd get go ahead, sometimes not. It depended.
Yeah, the pipeline sort of probably evolved for you guys quite a bit, because for those that played MW early on, like we did have missile flaps on like the Centurion and Catapult. But unfortunately, I would say design as far as art, gameplay, some of the gameplay stuff really wasn't explained, and so it was sort of like the flaps, like, hey, you get a damage reduction if they're closed, but hey, you got to press a button to open them, and like in a complicated game. And then fast forward, we have like now the catapult, they just pop open when you fire. It's like, I just remember arguing like, that's how it should have been from the start. Like, oh my god, like it's that easy. And then you could have kept the cool factor of like some of these things, and then when weapon models, and I understand why, because you sort of hinted at it, was like, this is a medium laser, it's this tube, make it fit on everything, like, and it's like, yeah, but that sort of takes away the aesthetic on some of the designs where you'd want like the catapult, K2, or whatever it is, like. And yeah, there was definitely some where I think that patchwork would be like the term, like stuff was like, yeah, you can definitely tell that wasn't from the beginning, and then it got plastered on at the end because things changed.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff throughout the game where the standards have kind of changed, and other stuff had to be retrofitted to meet the standard. Also, like, I think we went through 2 or 3 different ways of visualizing damage since when the first run of models were made. Like, I think they wanted to show armor damage via like this sort of underlying texture exposure type system, and I don't think they had. Jeez, it's been so long. I don't think they had visualized like armor or location destruction visuals. I don't think initially. I think they just had the texture swapping where you took damage. But apparently that looked really bad because the texture that they were swapping to looked very technical, and it just looked like your mech was covered in circuitry after a while. And so that got replaced with just more of a sooty, burnt texture. But then the mechs just kind of looked like
Black charcoal.
Black charcoal. Yeah, the mechs looked like a Looney Tunes character that had dynamite blow up on it.
I was going to ask you, this sort of goes back to that time, because what you're talking about, it was like when you would take damage, they had obviously the glow effect. The game, when it came out, looked phenomenal. Like, I show people screenshots, and I'll send them to you just verified, but it's like, the one is like the Atlas, and it's the Old Forest Colony, or the K2, or the Hunchback, and it's standing there, and it looks like it was painted. And I was like, no, that's what the game used to look like. It had this, I guess, shaders and the stylized sort of, it was before there was custom paint jobs. And so I was like, the game used to look so beautiful. Obviously, some things were cranked a little bit too high. It was Crisis and a lot of systems, but the stylistic approach, I don't know how else, I don't know what you call it in art terms, but like the game looked fantastic. Like and in my opinion, when the shaders changed where you can paint stuff, it just, everything changed. The game just, the mechs never looked the same, whatever. So it's a shame, because I think, when the Atlas was, it was like that red color, and so each his own.
Yeah, I think something was kind of lost when we had to make a whole bunch of shifts to accommodate like the modularity of full-blown customization, the modularity of the different paint jobs and all that stuff. Yeah, some stuff was unfortunately lost,
and it's tied into the monetization. Yeah, it is what it is. Let me ask you, and I've talked about this a lot on my streams, is like when you were drawing and doing the mechs at the very beginning, is it safe to assume you guys didn't know how the game was going to play? And I bring this up, like Atlas low mounts versus, Mark II high mounts, and like the performance of a mech and stuff like that. And I've always wondered, because I never asked you when I was there, and I never thought to ask you, but like, did you and the time before we sort of helped with balance, like how did anybody ever say like, hey, just FYI, like low mount's bad, it's, you're gonna be shooting in the dirt, or like, hey, this needs to be higher, or like, did that even factor in? I'm assuming early no, and later
maybe on no. Okay. Yeah, after a while it started to factor, but yeah, early on I was mostly concerned with the aesthetics of these mechs and trying to make them look cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's,
apologize.
No, I think it's fair. I that's where my point is. Like, I think, because sometimes you're like having these conversations with people, it's like you're looking at the Atlas, you're talking about tabletop, it doesn't care what the Atlas looks like. There's no high mounts, low mounts, whatever mounts. I was like, but you transition that into a first person shooter where you have 3-dimensional geometry now, that low mount affects the performance, and then blah blah blah. Knowing that, did your mind shift change when drawing mechs on that? Did that?
To a degree, but usually not to the extent where if the original design had like the mount low on the body, and that's just how it was, and moving it upwards would just completely alter the look of the mech. I usually, I wasn't going to just shift everything higher just because of that. I was mostly concerned with trying to get the aesthetic across. I mean, I would try to nudge stuff up if I could, but I didn't want to just have every mech just have everything up there either.
What was an early challenge that you ran into?
Mm. God, there were so many. uh
While you
Please
sit
edit
there?
out the pause. I'm,
No,
I'm
it's all,
trying to
it's all right.
think. I'm trying to think of a good one.
Is it
Um,
is it a mech design? Is it you, because you did concept for environmental as well. I think that was you, right?
a
Like
little bit,
a little bit.
yeah.
Okay. Because like especially early on, some of the art, the concept art that was released had mechs in a different environment. Like they were trying to recreate the maps that they were doing. But you mentioned some days you were like, holy crap, and then some days just grindstone. I think a lot of people, you come into work, you have a boss, right? And that boss says, hey, these are the tasks up on the board. I need, you're a week late on that, whatever mech. I need you to, was that sort of like the pressure? Did you feel pressure at times to just, and did that conflict maybe with the artist in you of like, or, hey, it is what it is. You got to figure it out.
I mean, it is what it is. I tended toward, I have a bad relationship with deadlines. I am chronically late, but I try to get stuff done to meet my own artistic standards, I guess. So I have a hard time just, shoveling something in. But
let me rephrase that question.
Hmm?
Was there any mech or mech design or something that you got vetoed on and you had to, you didn't get the last
vetoed
say?
on.
Like you did like a certain design or something, or anything like that. Was there any challenge of that? Or
Well, trying to get the urban mech into the game was a huge fight. That took forever, many years before the urban mech ever made it in. It almost didn't. Like I had to push hard for that one. And man, I think I fought for for getting the king crab in for the longest time too. Like I was advocating for the king crab for ages.
what were the holdbacks on those? Like why not? I mean, the Irby I can understand gameplay.
Urban yeah. King crab, I honestly don't know. It was just it just kept falling on the back burner to like put out some other type of mech. And I was like, what about the king crab? What about the king crab? What about the king crab? Eventually it was like, okay, Alex, we're going to do the king crab. Like, yeah!
This was actually, so I have a Patreon and one of my battalion members specifically asked about the urban mech. What is, in your opinion, Unity's fascination with the love bug of mechs? What is
it's
it?
like it's not very good, but it tries really hard, and it kind of has an adorable shape. That just kind of it's kind of reminiscent of a VW Beetle almost. I don't know. It just has a lovable little shape and two little bug antennas, and it thinks it can. I don't know. It's the perfect fodder for a children's book.
I was gonna say, so you're responsible for that happening. They did have to make special rules for the engine and stuff like that, but
I disagree with what they did, because like it kind of undermined the point of having the urban mech in the first place, because they let it throw in whatever engine you wanted, and
oh my god,
I think they probably.
Sorry, I just had a complete moment here. So you said it didn't really fit the whole reason, but the whole reason has to do with like it's cheap. You can throw it in an urban environment, it dies, whatever. There's a million more, or whatever, right? Like the logistics aspect. Then my brain went, "Oh, you mean like Living Legends?" And then I went, "Oh, that's where I actually met you the first time, because you used to troll the shit. You remember you played Living Legends? You were in the VTOL with like an LRM-20 right at like 900 spawn meters, and you were like warp and it would literally do this, and so you couldn't like lock on, and you used to like troll the shit out of us playing Living Legends. That was you. Oh my god, I don't know why the Irby made me think of that, and I made that connection, but that's
So, just for reference, I wasn't trying to troll so much as I was just trying to survive. But yes, I was flying the Hawk Moth. It had, I think, a narc beacon and I think LRM 10 actually, or maybe a 15. I don't think it had a 20. But yeah, I
phase
was
in and out of reality.
I was strapped for cash in the game, and the Hawk Moth is a good starter vehicle. So I would just balloon up and just narc people and LRM them and annoy the living daylights out of them.
But a game mode like that, you could see where, hey, you're starting assets, this really shitty Irby or whatever, and then you could earn C-bills or whatever from there. Like that's my brain. I don't know how it works. It's just that's what popped in my mind. And obviously in different, tabletop, you could use them or whatever. But like, it just did. I think they had to make those adjustments because it'd have been just DOA. I mean, no one would play him. Yeah. So, Living Legends. Which, by the way, great game mode. I know people talk about it.
They're still working on it.
Yeah, I got into it to help break my Eve addiction. And did you go by FlyingDebris? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's
I've been FlyingDebris since I was.
I think that's how I knew it was you.
12.
Yeah. Okay. A really good game mode. I mean, again, recently talking to Russ about like, oh, what do you think would work? And it's like, I think large scale combined arms is really an untold on the like a studio doing it, not just a mod team, right? But Living Legends is still going, so kudos to those guys. I think it's a different team than it was back in the day. But okay, so. And that would have been prior to you getting that job, or even during. It would around there, and that's when I was playing.
Yeah. I think around 2009, 2010, I was actively playing Living Legends, and ended up contributing to it a little bit. I did the artwork for the heads-up display for the elementals and the later HUD that they used for the mechs with the green lines and stuff.
Yeah.
I think can't remember what year that would have been exactly, but
I did my first 3D model for Living Legends. It was the Stormcrow. I had never.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I remember it was fascinating because like one behind the scenes, but I remember there was another artist that I like admired, and I sent him like my first like draft, and he was like, you need to add more than just like, it was circles and shit. Like you need to add some more to break up lines and stuff like that, and cylinders. And it's funny because like, the Hunchback is asymmetrical, but yet here's this, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, but the one thing that always really irked me was just the complete, and this is what happens with mods, but it's like the complete lack of coercion of the art and models. And like, one would be fantastic, and one would look like absolute dog crap. And but it's like, well, what happens when you have volunteers working on stuff? But yeah. So let me ask you about an important thing. This is a hot topic on the internet. Let's talk about scaling. How do you feel about it? Because like, do you feel that the depiction in and this in MWO and Mech 5 specifically, that's, I mean, am I wrong?
It's too big.
They're too big, right?
Too big.
Versus lore, they're a lot smaller, right? I mean,
yeah. So this was one of those things where the scale kind of got established early on, and I think I must have missed whatever meeting there was when that happened, and things just kind of things got established as far as scale went early on, and it became really big pain in the ass to go back and change everything after that had happened, because there was already that momentum going forward. And then there was some time a number of years ago when we did do a scale revision to try and make stuff more consistent, but there wasn't really a desire to bring the scale down. They just sort of normalized it along the spectrum. I disagree with that. Personally, I would have wanted the mechs to be considerably shorter, or at least the upper end of them. I think the light mechs are mostly okay. It's just that the scale goes from like this to this with light mechs, and I'd rather have it where it just goes down like closer to that. But it is what it is, I guess.
Because I mean, ultimately, the scaling, I mean, other than doing like an illustration where you have like infantry on the battlefield versus a mech in the foreground or whatever, like that matters per se. But like in a game like MWO, scale really mattered. Drastic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I first brought it up ages ago when I'm like, so the reason your Jaeger mech is dying so much is because its entire leg is the size of the entire Jenner. That is why your light mechs are eating everything alive.
Yep.
So
okay, so I guess we're in agreement there. I mean, especially I think Mech 5 they did downscale the Annihilator because it didn't fit in your Leopard dropship. That's how is that? Go ahead.
Oh, keep in mind that like just scaling stuff down also it interferes with textures and animations and stuff, so it's no small feat when you've got like dozens and dozens of mechs to suddenly rescale, and then that's time that the modelers aren't making other mechs or making other things. So just from a production standpoint, going back to fix everything and reestablish scale is no small feat.
Yeah, and it's a hard sell to your boss.
It's a hard sell to the boss. Yeah. And then you also have, the reaction of like, hey, why is my mech suddenly smaller? Not everyone's going to agree with that decision, so that kind of goes into the math on whether to do it or not. I personally think they should be smaller, but that's my own artistic vanity talking.
So as a player of BattleTech, because this sort of goes in scale, what about proportions? Because like when I proposed doing quirks, Paul, yes, everybody, if you didn't hear the story, I was the one who did quirks at first. And yes, I was the one who messed up and put 1,000 cooldown on the quick draw, and we had to have an emergency pass. In my defense, I was remote connecting and there was a delay. That's all I'll say. I'll take full responsibility for all the errors. But one of the things...
I can't blame you because I was also promoting quirks to Paul probably around the same time.
I wish we could have collaborated on that. But my argument was because of the scale issues and because of the nature of Pinpoint, do you feel like MechWarrior needs to evolve a bit when it comes to like hit locations and sort of like what hit detection or HP pools? I mean, you name it. Like, how do you feel about that? Because like,
absolutely. Oh man, I've
we
so many thoughts about.
Are we holding ourselves back, like just being like curmudgeon about like, no, it's got to do this, and
Yes, I think trying to. So, I like crunchy rules. I like very simulatory type rules, and I think that should be preserved, like having that crunchy feeling of there's like so many different ways of killing a mech, so many ways of taking it apart, and having that be entertaining both on the giving end and on the receiving end of getting shot. or shooting or whatever. Because I don't believe in trying to simplify the damage model. I want it interesting. I want it dynamic. At the same time, I think trying to stick with the tabletop rules too closely is going to lead to all sorts of weird artifacts like what we've experienced over the many years of MechWarrior games, where, you know, group fire, massed weapons are taking locations off in one go, or it doesn't matter if you're shooting, at the foot or at the hip, whatever. I think there are changes that could be made that live in the spirit of the universe, of the setting, but don't exactly adhere to the old rules that closely. So, like, I think it would be interesting to not have pinpoint accuracy at all times. I think that's something that could be probably gamified somehow. Having weapons take time to converge, or maybe having limits to that could be a thing. I think it could be interesting to sort of delineate equipment that can be damaged like externally versus stuff that's actually fully protected by your armor. So, like, maybe being able to pop a weapon that is partially exposed, but not being able to, like, before you burrow through the armor, versus stuff that you have to be digging in internals to break. Like, break a medium laser when you're a third of the way through an Atlas's arm, but if you want to break the actuator, maybe you have to dig deeper or actually be in internals or something like that. I think there's a lot of stuff that could be explored there, I think.
Yeah, I think the sim aspect is an interesting one, because everybody's like, "Oh, I want MechWarrior to be a sim again," and I'm like, MechWarrior's never been a sim. Like, because when I hear sim, I think its definition, I think of like flight sim, where you literally have to learn how to fly a plane.
That might be a little too dry.
Yeah, MechWarrior has never been that. I mean, because I played all of them. I was there for 4. I was there for 3. I was there for 2. Like, it's always, but like, I feel like customization, and I feel like I've been on my high horse about it. MWO introduced sort of an old and new things. They introduced the hardpoint system from 4, which I thought was unique, but then they reintroduced the sort of like slot system, which I always felt was like sort of antiquated. 4 moved away from that. Now, I don't know how you felt when you played 4. I was like, oh, this wasn't MechWarrior. And I was like, oh, now I understand. It's a design. Like, hey, isn't it really stupid that you put ammo in the legs and it just magically appears in your right arm? It's like, yeah, that's actually really stupid. Yeah. Did they talk about that in lore when they're talking about like the novels? Did they go in there? No. And so for me, it's like one of those things where you're an artist, the UI of the Mech Lab, I always just feel like when I play BattleTech Advanced, or I play Mech 5 Mercs and we have to use yet another Mech Lab, to me, it's just a cacophony of just colors and just, there's so much stuff. And I'm not saying simplify it. What I'm saying is, like, the fascination with just, there's never myelin or muscle fibers that you modify or change that are really important in the novels. A gyro, how important is a gyro? I remember getting my shit knocked over thousands of times in Mech 3. So I don't know. I've just always wondered about your thoughts on.
Yeah, like I think with customization, I think there's probably things that could be done to make the Mech Lab rules feel more natural, make more sense, be more legible. Because like there's a whole bunch of stuff in the rules right now that isn't exactly obvious to a player and doesn't really make much sense. But the community kind of just internalized it over the years. So, you know, the average long-term player might not think twice about it, but a newcomer would be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why is that a thing? Like, oh yeah, you could upgrade your mech with Artemis to make your missiles more accurate, but not if you have a single, launcher stuck in your head, because it takes up one extra spot. So that one launcher in your head invalidates Artemis all over your mech. Can't I just put Artemis on everything but the one in my head? No, they all have to have Artemis. Like, why?
Yeah. And that's a leftover from tabletop build rules. It's so hard to have that discussion sometimes because people get so fixated. It's like, do you understand when you play Monopoly, you're following Monopoly's rules, right? That's a board game and it has rules. That's all tabletop is. Mm-hmm. What if I don't know, you're playing Call of Duty? Does that run on different set of rules than Monopoly? Well, yeah, it's like, yeah, because like it's, to me, I don't know. It's
different constraints. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say, like, I would love to have a MechWarrior game where, maybe you're not so much completely ripping out, a tiny engine from a mech and stuffing in one that's like 3 times faster or whatever. Maybe you don't have that degree of, shifting the design of the mech, or maybe you're not replacing small laser and shoving in a PPC where it used to go or whatever. I would love to have options of gyros to throw in there, different brands of gyros or different brands of engines, and having that make a difference, or different types of standard armor that might be, have pros or cons, basically RPGing out some of the weapons a little bit, so it feels less like, these very standardized pieces of equipment, and feels more like, God, I guess loot bloat. I guess I like loot bloat. I'm guilty. I like loot bloat.
Yeah, whatever. No, I think there's nothing wrong with it. I just always go back to I always really feel that there needs to be a very creative designer and to come in and really. I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel per se, but I do feel like there is something to be said about, especially with the conversation that Russ and I just had. I don't know if you listened to it, but basically, what is going to be the next? Is there going to be a next MechWarrior game? And then what does that look like? Is it just a copy and pasta of what we already have, or now that you've had all this many years of experience, and would you, hey, we're going to do the mechs slightly different way. But you mentioned Cone of Fire and stuff like that. I feel like that's an important distinction too, is I don't think that's crazy, but the ultimate thing is your bottom baseline design of how combat is going to work has to be established first. So Call of Duty or Battlefield's a great example. You're firing that belt-fed 240 and you're hip firing, it's automatically going to disperse, and it's a built-in from the ground up. Whereas a lot of the systems in MWO, because they were pinpoint after the fact, they had to Ghost Heat is one of those where they just didn't theory craft that could be a problem with their customization system, and then you have to come up with all these different rules. I think a Cone of Fire system or whatever, depending on the weapon or this or that, I think a lot of the times customization just opens the cans of it's very difficult to balance.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think the thing I was trying to get at earlier, maybe having customization of your mech feel a little bit more like customizing a car in like one of those racing sim games where you're like fiddling with the suspension and changing your, the grip on your tires, kind of, you know, level of stuff like tweaking. I think I would personally love a game where I've got my Centurion and I'm like, oh, let me fiddle with the whatever stat on the myometers in my legs or whatever to make it better able to kick, but maybe my, you know, acceleration or turning speed, takes a hit, or I'm gonna accurize my AC10, but this other thing is gonna take a hit somewhere else, and like just constantly be fiddling with the minutia of my mech. And then when I do customize something major, like ripping out the AC10 and putting in a Gauss rifle or something, it feels like a much bigger deal. But
Yeah.
like maybe the baseline is more, doing minor tweaks and then maybe making major overhauls feels like a much bigger deal instead of what it currently is, where it just feels like a given that you're going to overhaul the thing and
Your
optimize the hell
your
out of it.
statement just popped in my head is it brings me back to Living Legends a little bit. Like I love MWO. Uh, I think it's been one of the best MechWarrior Online, MechWarrior PvP experiences there has been. But Living Legends, one of the things I always thought about, which was, why did you play Living Legends? Is it because it was the only thing? To me, it was the game mode and just gameplay was really, and the choices that you had to maneuver around the battle space, and you had tactical choices. And I always sort of thought, for those that didn't know, there was no customization. So it was, you started
Yeah.
off, you had very little amounts of C-bills, you could purchase a vehicle, you could stay in your battle armor, you get a mech, but it was like the low on the totem pole, and your performance on doing these tasks, whether killing other players, going and capturing bases or whatever, um, you would earn C-bills, and then you can go back and you could redo it. And I was sort of, the reason I bring this up is you mentioned, what I hear you saying is that may be like a PvE experience, whereas on a PvP experience, I've always wondered, is like, maybe mech customization isn't exactly like a future. It's sort of like a Living Legends where you earn, and hey, you got that Atlas, it's a standard Atlas, but you can then get the, instead of the AS7D, you can get the upgraded version because you can spend a little bit more. And but you're not customizing, because the focus isn't on you staying in the mech lab in this PvP experience. It's, no, let me hop on that. Okay, it's got a better Gauss rifle now instead of just, an AC-20. It's got ER large lasers, so I can start, hammering at long range. And so you've got that. Next thing you know, you're rolling out because, to me, it's like, I think sometimes the MechWarrior sort of like genre, it's like this caught between, am I asking for an online PvP experience? Am I asking for a PvE experience? And like, what does that look like? Am I asking for a, micromanaged, merc stuff? Or am I more asking for like an online, like, going to the planets and taking over, planets and resources and stuff? And I feel like that's the,
Yeah, there's a lot of
there's a
different
lot there, right? Like,
directions to be pulled.
yeah, and that's that conversation I had with Russ. It was like, he was like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's like, hey, this is what I think. What do you think?" And, and to you, I mean, obviously, what would you like to see? I mean, I don't know how much of MWO you played, if at all. Like, I don't know.
I played a whole bunch early on, maybe not so much later on, but um, I I think something I would love to see in a MechWarrior game, if we're talking strictly like PvP, drop into a multiplayer environment and like shoot it out with other teams. Um, I would like to see like damage feel more of a. I would like there to be more drama to damage. I would like to be more immersed in the cockpit. Uh, I would like to be, if you remember the old MechWarrior sim pods, like the before they switched to the MechWarrior 4 engine, they had stuff like, you know, your ammo could catch on fire and you had to like toggle through all these things to dump your flaming ammo before it blew you up, or you know, you had to reroute coolant from a leak around a leaking area so that your mech didn't bleed out all of its coolant and suddenly, you know, you just can't get rid of your heat.
Almost like a
you
mini
know?
game while you're in the cockpit. All of a sudden it's flashing over there and you have to like, mini game pops up and you have to reroute this little puzzle of like, okay, coolant reestablished, you know, and your heat levels start dropping again, you know?
Yeah, like you could, I think the simulator pods, you could be like overclocking your lasers. You could be having to reroute power, reroute coolant. It was like a whole bunch of these weird little things little emergencies that you could be dealing with while you were being actively shot, which I think adds like a very special kind of drama to combat, because it's a distraction from just focusing on, you know, the guy in front of you and shooting at him till he dies. And I would love to see something like that with like micromanaging the aspects of your mech that makes it feel like a functional vehicle while, you know, you're in combat, and also having a greater importance on like scouting, electronic warfare, sensors of that regard, so that the battlefield doesn't just feel like, you know, rounding a corner and shooting someone, rinse and repeat. Like I think I would love to see a lot more of like a tactical, like a stronger tactical emphasis. Like I am not a fan of how like ECM was done. Uh, like some mech with ECM on walking through an open field out in, you know, broad daylight where an entire team could see him, and you can't lock onto him with LRMs. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like I would love to see something where like, okay, so your mech weighs this much, your mech is running this hot, you are engaging in these activities, you are this close to cover, and you know, you shut off these sensors. Okay, this is how stealthy you are. Versus this other mech might be completely out in an open field, running hot as hell, running full speed, jump jetting, and has got like the whole suite of, you know, active sensors on. Okay, that one's gonna light up like a Christmas tree on everyone's sensors. You know, like just having your behaviors sort of dictate how visible you are to the enemy.
Almost like a sensors are now planes and stuff with your heat signature. How much signature are you sending out there? Like,
yeah. How much
know,
signature are you sending
if I'm
out?
sending out a ping, the ping coming back, and it's like, oh, this, you know, and I think that's where MWO, you mentioned. So what I'm tracking, what you're saying is you don't like the arena combat MWO basically is, which is fine. I think that's fair. And you're wanting more of like a bigger scale thing where it goes back to Living Legends, where it's like, hey, I need light mech, you know, like what's going on over there, or even a vehicle or whatever. I'm not saying planet side level. I know people make reference to that, but I think it's more of like a battlefield experience. And I just wonder, that's where I sort of said that, which is like imagine battlefield, but with battle mechs, and maybe the players are the mechs, and then you have AI elements standing out and doing stuff.
Would be, yeah, I think AI elements would be great
to
honestly.
Capture that skill. I mean, let's, you know, like I said, yeah, I do wonder, you know, when I had that conversation is like, but also would it sell? Would it work? You know, like those are the unknowns. You just don't know. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, am I crazy in thinking this? You you have, yes, there's unknowns on there, but also you're the only town and shop when it comes to MechWarrior. Like that was your golden goose choosing that IP. And obviously get into to clans and mercs and stuff like that. But yeah, I just wonder what distinction between what fans want and they say. Does that have to do with TV and a single player thing or co-op? Or is it, they want an online experience or like a combination of both and blah, blah, blah. And I have always said is like, I don't have to have any customization whatsoever if the game mode's just really fun. Like hop in, and I remember just losing hours in Living Legends and just hopping in because the gameplay was so just fun. And for those that don't know, it's nothing special. It was a conquest game mode, but instead of it just being a cap point, some of the points would have repair bays or respawn locations where, if you were in a, you could respawn there in the asset that you were in, or vice versa or whatever. I just feel like they could explore that, and obviously they mentioned, I don't know if you heard, but they mentioned possibly Mech Commander being a thing. Did you play the originals?
I played the original Mech Commander and Mech Commander Gold, but I never played the second one.
It's okay. It's better off that way. It was such a letdown. I know some people love it, but man, it's such an ugly game. It was that like weird period where 2D was going 3D, and it was so fugly.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
So fugly.
Yeah. The 2D sprites were so much prettier.
Yeah.
They had so much more sauce.
Yeah, I do agree. How long did it take you to do a mech? Like, and also, can you break down your process, like concept to orthographics to, or whatever? Like, how long would it take you to do that? Like on a come to work, how many days,
It could take me maybe like 2 weeks or so. I am not a fast worker. I am not efficient with my time. But yeah, it might take a few weeks. Like typically the doodling a rough shape, super quick. That's the fastest and funnest part of the drawing. But then trying to turn those doodles into something solid, that's the hard part. That takes a long time. And making the drawing, how do I put it? Adhere to the rules of like the rest of the mechs, like making sure that, okay, the arms aren't going to just clip the legs when this thing starts torso twisting and walking, or the weapons are roughly the right size as similar scaled mechs, or this thing doesn't have, like, this thing could actually bend properly without just crashing all over the place, or it's got enough real estate for paint jobs or weapon customization, and yeah, stuff of that nature. Yeah, that eats up a lot of the time, and then the fun part is at the very end when you start doing the paint job.
What was the pace like at the beginning of MWO for you? And did you have a lot of prep that you did ahead of time, or because 2 patches a month? I don't remember. There was mechs going on sale left and right. I mean, some people that weren't around, I mean, it was a whirlwind. And what was that like for you? And
Early on, I think it was, yeah, I was just doing mechs as fast as I could, like one after another. Like in the first few years, I would get pretty far ahead of the modeling team to the point where we'd have like a backlog of mech concepts that the modelers can choose from. Later on, though, things slowed down, and it was more like draw mechs as they were needed, and I would help out, either doing textures here or doing environment drawings there, or other types of, or like environmental illustrations or buildings or stuff like that.
Is there any mech that you hated? You just didn't like it, but you
Mech, I hate the actual mech.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm just not a fan. Like, like the Kintaro. That thing is.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of the Kintaro. I think I made him like too flat front to back, honestly. But yeah, no, there's a whole bunch of mechs that like I would love to go back and edit if I could. Just either things here or there that I wish I would have done differently.
Have you seen I know there was fan art of like done concepts where did you see any of those where like you're like, oh man, it's a good idea? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Like I love what the Hired Steel guys did with some of the old mechs, where they just added all these little extra features all over them. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Obviously, the Irby, we talked about that earlier. That was one of the questions. Did you run into any challenges? Was there anything that like you just, or like what is one mech that like you would go back and fix? Like it's been nagging at you.
The Centurion, I would absolutely love to go back and thin it.
It was thin though.
Just
in the
illustration
concept.
was thin.
Yes.
In the concept, it was thin, but in the orthos, I accidentally made it too wide in the orthos, and that's what got modeled. Now I just want to just
oh, dude, I have
11 or 12%. That's all I'm asking for.
It sucks because it's like the run animation Mech 5 Mercs in that intro. It's this robot. That's another issue I wanted to ask you, is like the mechs were organic in their movement. In the novels, it talks about it. It's eerily, it's giant avatars of humans or animals moving, and they're elegant and they're just terrifyingly, like this weird sense of, oh, that's a giant human walking. And then MWO comes along, and I've argued this. You don't have to throw anybody under the bus. The first 4 mechs that you guys did were a little bit more organic. The Waddle and the Atlas, it's actually got like hip rotation. The Jenner, the Hunchback's got that strut. All the other animations just are balls. The King Crab Waddle, that, oh my, like, it bothers me to no end. Being an artist, does that bother you?
I guess a little bit.
Okay. I'm not crazy. I'm not being gaslit, right?
No, you're not. You're not crazy. You're not crazy.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I've always been I'm not even a freaking artist. I can't draw with crap, but I can sure as heck tell you whether or not, like, oh man, that Timberwolf not running really irks me. It just walks fast, like, oh, let me ask you. This is a side one. This is just the interpretation of the Timberwolf and it not having the like lower leg separation. You combine that. How did that?
Oh god, that bugs me too.
Was that you or was that someone else made that decision?
That was a decision I
have to live with.
Was compelled. I did not purposely make that decision. No, I originally did want the legs on the outside. I was told that was that there was a limitation in how we animated the mechs that would prevent that from working properly. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can't do that. So I went and gave it the legs that it has now, and then I find out later, oh no, we totally could have done that. Like, yeah.
feel like I saw years ago someone had made an illustration about that. Had made like a change. They like slimmed down the Timby in certain aspects, and I just feel like the one thing that is like the Timber has always been predatory to me.
Yeah, no, the Timmy bugs the hell out of me. I wish I could go back and change.
I hear that's a normal artist problem, that just there's never, you can't just be happy with what you put out there. You always, you just gotta, I guess that's, yeah, it's the burden you have to live with, I guess. But
Yeah.
okay, let me obviously jump forward. You guys, MechWarrior Online, what about Mercs? How was working on Mercs for you versus MWO? Was that much different for you, or?
It was with Mercs. I wasn't really actively drawing too much of. I wasn't drawing more mechs for that for the most part, because we were using the existing mech assets we have. So with Mercs, I was more doing character portraits, doing environmental illustrations, doing screens of stuff like splash image screens, the cover art, obviously. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
How involved were you with clans? As far as, were you the one doing all the concepts for all the characters and like behind the scenes, or like how much direction and impact did you have on that?
On clans, it was more designing character outfits, honestly. I did do like other like splash image type stuff as well, but it was a lot of looking at the old uniforms of the characters from like the old splat books and stuff, the field manuals and whatnot, and yeah, trying to make those old outfits try to make more sense and spruce them up a little bit.
Yeah,
because I didn't want to just go generic sci-fi jumpsuits like is the tendency. I actually was like, I think I could make this this field uniform or this dress uniform actually make sense. Let's go with that. So
yeah, some of the original artwork, you're just like, because I like the Ulrich Karinsky one, what he's wearing, and some of the others, even the Ghost Bear. You see the original artwork, and then like your guys' interpretation. It's pretty damn spot on, but you made it so it's like, yeah, actually, I mean, I'd wear a jacket like that too. Like, that's not bad. Whereas you look at the original artwork and you're like, but yeah.
I didn't want to fall into like the sort of trap that like Mech Assault kind of fell into, where it was like emissives everywhere. Everyone's wearing this super high tech looking. I don't even know what you would call those outfits, but
did you see the
generic.
Mech Assault 3 stuff that was found? Did you ever see those images?
I saw some stuff of Mech Assault 3 when I was working at Day One Studios.
Oh, did you?
I don't know.
Oh, so you were there maybe
what.
when that was going on. It got canned. Never.
Oh no! I arrived well after it got canned.
Okay.
I heard from other employees, the story of how it got canned.
Yeah, it was quite drastic. For those who don't know, if you just Google it, you can see some of the images that were found. And it's like planners and stuff. It was very. It was
out there.
It was out there.
I think the Atlas had PPC wings that were like over its shoulders.
Yeah, it's decisions. That's, yeah, I don't know where you go on that one.
My understanding is that one of the what I was told was that one of the designers kind of brought up some idea of using hard gel as like an ability to construct things in the level, and other people kind of wanted to push the idea further, where you were just kind of running around with a hard gel sprayer, just mass constructing stuff on the fly.
This is prior to Fortnite. They invented Fortnite before Fortnite.
And yeah, and apparently they pushed the idea maybe a little bit too far, and it didn't quite land. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question here, and this is from CJ. He's part of my Patreon. He says, what was his favorite unseen mech to add to MechWarrior? Because that was an interesting thing. A little bit of history while you think on that.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Piranha Games announced the pack for the unseen, and then immediately got slapped. And so did, at the time, HBS BattleTech, by the way. They were doing the unseen. Had got slapped with a cease and desist by Harmony Gold, which then Russ at the time said, all right, let's go to court, and ponied up. There was a lot of money involved, by the way. I don't know the exact number, but I know it wasn't below a few $100,000. Let's just put it that way. And for those that don't, anyways, come full circle, they never even owned the freaking rights in the first place. Like,
yeah.
And how was, like, I'm on the outside again, even though we did contract work for PGI. I'm in North Carolina. Darren was in California and then Washington. Like, I'm not there in the office. I don't know what's like you're an employee, you're working there every single day, you know, blah, blah, blah. What's the feeling? But like, yeah, so it went to court and basically it got dismissed, I think, with like prejudice, where they found out that like, oh no, Harmony Gold actually has never owned the rights to whatever they're claiming. And they've just been basically bullying people for years. And yeah, so that happened many years ago. So, and then you guys came out with the mechs.
Within the office, I didn't experience much of it, although I did have to send a few emails with, like, you know, a bunch of documentation of my illustrations and stuff.
That was crazy. No.
Well, like,
everything was
trying
crazy.
to say that the Atlas was, you know, fell under their ownership somehow. They were massive overreaching.
Oh yeah, there was a legal dude that was covering it, and he was breaking it down, and he showed like the documents, and it was like an image of a mech. They were trying to cut, like, what are you talking about? And yeah, it was insane. So yeah,
I would say the Marauder would be although if I could go back, I would make that gun probably closer to dorsally mounted. I would still try and make it offset towards that side torso, because I do want to respect the fact that it is side torso mounted and not center torso mounted, but I would probably move it closer to dorsal as like a little turret if I could. But that would be my change. But I really enjoyed putting the Marauder in.
well, see, that's interesting, because like the Shadowhawk in the novels, the Great Death Legion and Great Death Trilogy talk about this. Like the Shadowhawk, the autocannon can, you know, go back and be in sort of a stow position, but that backpack almost looking thing, it's like it has the life support. It carries, you know, ammunition and stuff like that. And those are like little details that, like what you were just saying, is like, I feel like MechWarrior could really like lean into if it just moves and breaks away from some of these like rules that sort of arbitrary hold it back. I do feel, and I don't have the answer. I am not creative. You know, like, to a sense, like I'm not that guy. I'm not your lead game designer, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I just feel like those are really cool, like intricate things, because we run into this issue is like, what's the difference between this 55 tonner and that 55 tonner? You know, and it's like boring. They're all the same thing. It's just how many hard points does it have Indo steel, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, where's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like if we were doing, if we were going to have like a single player type MechWarrior game where it wasn't just being like you didn't have to deal with like the constant rushes of units, but like had like more downtime in between fights where it felt more like you were living in your mech a little bit. I think a lot of that stuff could matter a whole lot more, like having those quality of life cockpit elements, or you know, like making, if we could have like more differences in like how a mech drives and handles terrain and stuff like that. I think that would be a very neat thing to explore. Like if um like it, did you ever play Pacific Drive?
Mm-mm.
That was a game where it was, you know how like Stalker has all the anomalies and all that stuff? They basically have like the the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, due to some science thing gone wrong, gets a whole bunch of anomalies, and due to whatever gameplay contrivance, you are driving around in this beat up station wagon and delving in to explore through all these anomalous areas. And you're driving in first person. And the game goes, and like you've got your dashboard in front of you, you can mouse over, you know, your windshield wipers, your shifter, your ignition, your horn, all this stuff. And you're looking around your cockpit, and like the interface of the like the map display is on like this little device sitting in the passenger seat next to you. And there's all these things that work towards making your interaction with the inside of the car feel very diegetic, very in universe, and it feels lived in. It feels like you're living in your car.
You're immersed.
Almost. Or you're immersed. Yeah. And like there's all these situations where, you know, you'll be driving into an area and stuff will be interfering with the controls of your car. Like your horn will start going on and off, or like your windshield wipers will get, you know, will start going haywire, or the radio will turn on and off, or switch channels and do all sorts of crazy stuff because there's all this electronic interference or whatever. And like all these little immersive things, I think would be really fun to explore from like a MechWarrior standpoint of like, okay, you're some dude in the middle of a desert by yourself, sitting in a, I don't know, let's say a Shadowhawk, and like, you know, you're tuning your radio, you're drinking your sports drink, you're, you know, trying to keep on top of any kind of little check engine light problems that keep popping up. You know, having to keep your windows clean. Like, I think those would be really fun things to explore. And unfortunately, due to various, you know, gameplay contrivances because of either multiplayer or the structure of MechWarrior 5 or whatnot, you know, there isn't really that opportunity to have that. But I would personally love to have.
It's almost like
a
RPG elements. I do agree with you know, when I was talking to Russ, you know, I think there is something to be said about a sandbox experience, and like, because then, you know, Clan's obviously linear, you play it once, there's nothing different when you play it twice.
Mm-hmm.
But having that, like you said, you're solo out there you're trying to find a gig. Maybe you're just trying to get off the damn planet. Maybe you're trying to build a lance. Maybe you're trying to, you know, yeah, like I said, I just wonder, you know, does that, and it goes back to, does it sell? Does it make money? What's the pitch? And you know, obviously the games industry, as you well know, for those that have been following along and listening to this, you no longer work at Piranha Games.
Correct.
You were a part of a moderately sized layoff, second one, by the way, at PGI. And this was how many months ago now?
This would have been end of March.
End of March, so not too long ago. The games industry is volatile. I try to explain. I don't. It's almost like this. It's this golden pass of like, oh, it's like, no, you really remove games company and just call it companies. It's a business, and like bad business decisions happen all the time, or good ones, or you're overshadowed by a different product. And then this, I mean, imagine launching on the same day as GTA 6.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And so, or Cyberpunk. Actually, I think that's what happened with 5 or something like that. I remember something Cyberpunk was coming out and it got bumped back. I forgot which exactly, if it was the base or a DLC, but yeah, so like I don't know, man. Like I feel it's encouraging to hear Russ say, because he brought up Mech Commander. It was discouraging to hear basically felt that they've saturated sort of like what could we do with a Mech 6 Mercs that we don't already do. We'd have to offer a lot more, but ultimately the company's in financial position where the capital is the big issue. But I wanted to first off ask you, are you doing freelance work? If someone's watching this, can they hire you? Like how are you doing since the layoff?
I've been trying to keep busy. I've been doing commissions and stuff for a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I did some mech design concepts for Steel Bounty, that sort of low poly.
APOC, as he goes by.
APOC, yeah.
He goes by. Yeah, he popped into chat, and I was actually following him before he got the publisher. So that was really cool. So if someone does want, just so I don't, like, if someone's wanting to do a commission, DeviantArt the way, is it on your Twitter? What's the best way to contact you via?
Probably my Twitter, I guess. Just send me a DM.
Okay. I'll have that in the description.
But yeah, I did a little bit of, I did like a mech concept for the EOD guys, the Engines of Destruction. I've been doing some stuff for Catalyst. I did doing some stuff for Land and Sea. Just kind of like dabbling here and there. But yes, ultimately, I would like to find another industry job, like with a proper salary, but still looking.
Is it easier now to do that than it was back in 2010?
Or to do
like
what?
To be able to do like contract work and commission. Like, do you like in the landscape? Do you think it's easier now, or?
I think so, a little bit. Like being able to I know a whole lot more people now, so I didn't know a whole lot of people back then. So finding work to do is a little bit easier this time around. Also been talking to Big Red 40K.
I hope to sit down with him very soon, but he's sick, so yep.
So got some stuff to do down the pipe.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I've reached out to Big. I've reached out to Tex. I hope to sit down with those guys. They utilize a lot of artists in the community, which is just pretty cool, pretty dope. Seeing everybody come together and do that stuff. I feel like BattleTech's a unique position where, luckily, the IP holders don't pull a Disney. So or a wargaming. I don't know if you know that little history with, wargaming.
Yeah.
Do you know about my situation with them? I got sued.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I got sued by him.
What?
Yeah, I got sued. For those little trip down memory lane, I had I commissioned artwork for some of the merch, and I had a Warhammer design up on the store, and for whatever reason, even though they did their due diligence, I was part of a giant lawsuit. I had to the lawyer and all that because they don't know the difference between Warhammer the mech and Warhammer.
Oh, jeez.
I got thrown out. Don't worry about it. But
good.
I'm not a fan of war gaming because they're anyways. There's that. Yes. Anyways, Clans was probably the last thing you worked on.
Mhm.
Are you like, is it still on the table for you to do, like, did you get a feeling from PGI like, hey, we might hire you back in the future, or is this like we might bring you back on as contract? Because like, what is that? Is that something that you would consider, or are you just like, you know?
I mean, yeah, if they want to bring me back as for like contract stuff, that would be great. I love MechWarrior. I would love to keep working on it. Anything involving giant robots, that's pretty much that's what I know how to do. That is my thing.
Okay, well, maybe hopefully on the podcast. I mean, I know I'm not like a huge, but maybe some people reach out, and including myself, to do some, because I like what you do and we're at work, and you know, maybe we can do a thing or two, and make
All
it
right.
happen. But um, speaking of art, and you mentioned Catalyst Game Labs. I remember asking Anthony, aka Shimmering Sword. Obviously, there's legal reasons why their artwork has to be different than PGI's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I've actually really enjoyed the seeing their artwork. There's some designs that actually I think prefer your takes on, and then there's designs that I like their takes on. The one thing I was going to ask you is, you know, I called it the MWification as far as like designs and artwork, but I feel like there was some, I don't know if it was intentional divergence from it, but like there was some mechs that you started introducing. The first one was like the Arctic cheetah. It
Mm-hmm.
had more of an organic alien sort of look. The Vapor Eagle is another one where, like, to me, it was a very, I don't know how else to describe it, just sort of a departure a little bit from the line. I don't know if you're like, yeah, I agree, or it was like, no, I just like,
Yeah, no. Around that time, yeah, I was trying to. I was also internally worried that I was kind of making the mechs look a little too samey, so I was trying to branch out a little bit.
yeah, because I've always wondered, like, with the Draconis combined mechs, would their general look different than the Fed Sun's general? Or would it be the exact same? Or like if it's only produced in the Draconis combined, would their mechs have a different aesthetic than, you know, what you have over in something else?
I mean, I believe they should, but also from a production standpoint of a game with like dozens and dozens and dozens of mechs, that would probably be a huge pain in the ass, unfortunately. But I do think from a lore standpoint, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite mech outside the Irby, I guess? Do you have a favorite
Eh,
clan mech?
ooh. Hmm. The Kodiak will always have a soft spot in my heart because, you know, that's the one that you steal in MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries. So I do love that. Um, I love I love the Nova for just, you know, being so absolutely uh, self-destructive. That one's fun. Um, as far as Inner Sphere goes, I love the King Crab. King Crab is just it's got the right shape. I love that kind of the squat torso shape. I love the fact that, you know, the guns are out in front where you could kind of see them. I love the pinchers, and I love AC-20s. AC-20s are my favorite weapon. Um, I love ballistics. That's just my thing.
So you mentioned something there that I want to touch on, which is sort of
Mm-hmm.
like the tank-like nature.
Mm-hmm.
I've always felt the cicada is probably the most tank-like mech, you know, in a sense of it's got this tank-like turret, if you will, torso. Um, just looking at some of your, one of my favorite pieces of artwork that you did way
Mm-hmm.
before MWO was the Fiddler. Um,
Oh yeah.
you again going back to like some of your like pre MWO days. I just sort
Mm-hmm.
of you were taking like you were taking something that just to me latched on and was like, oh yeah, I could see, you know, mechs like that or a different, because like really what we're talking about, and this is what's really difficult, is like, I don't know, let's just say most iconic mech, the Atlas or
Mm-hmm.
Catapult or Timmy or whatever. Like what would it be like if you applied, what if, missile launchers were always at a certain angle, or, weapons were, looked like this or that. It's like, could you make those things work without losing the original, you said, is feel of the, base artwork? But yeah, the Fiddler to me was like one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, I could see a mech 100% like that. Cause like, but yeah, I mean, I don't know really what I was asking there, other than I really like some of those like old school artwork sort of mecha designs that you did, because to me it was like it mixes form and function, and where sometimes like what always bothered me is having hands in MWO. We don't have hands in MWO. There's no hands. There's no interaction. Why do you have hands? Especially when like you'd put the hard point below, and it'd just be even worse, or on the side, so convergence would be even worse. Yeah, I've always. Oh, you did do the Rattler originally. You did the Rattler. Like back in the day. Like
yeah, that was one of my earlier TRO illustrations. Yeah,
I totally forgot about that. Sorry, I'm going through your DeviantArt right now. So, yeah. Is there anything that you wish you could have done, or a mech that like just you always wanted to do it, you never could do it?
Oh, geez. I think I got through pretty much all the mechs that I wanted to do in over the course of working on MechWarrior, and then like I've done so many mechs that there's mechs that I've forgotten that I've done.
You have artwork here that I just wish we could see a game like this. You have a quick draw that's staying. It almost, you know what it reminds me of? And there's another image that you have on here of the Uller Mad Cat. It's like a gritty, dark inner sphere back. It reminds, I don't know, it's like a cyberpunk mixed with it's that recent movie with Ryan Gosling, and not recent, but people kill me for this because I don't remember, but it's like
Blade Runner.
Yeah, Blade Runner. Yeah, you've got this like it's like that would be a setting. Yeah, I mean, all of these, you just have a setting of just, it's almost like Mad Max a little bit with like this. It's like a Shadowrun. I sort of get to the Shadowrun vibes of that, like super high tech, but yet low tech at the same, and these like color palettes that we just never got.
Something I wish, not specifically like art wise, but something I really wish we would have been able to do. This was something I was advocating for the longest time, but I really love the idea of like weapon brands and equipment brands in BattleTech, and I would have loved to be able to like flesh those out, because there's like you got a little bit of that when we in MechWarrior 5, when we were adding burst fire auto cannon versus the single shot versus like the full auto, and the stream LRM versus. I wanted to go way more in depth than that. I would love to have had like, here is the old school Tamadzuru AC-20 for the Hunchback, before their factories got bombed to shit in the Succession Wars and they went with the Kali-Yama. So this is the old school AC-20. It behaves a certain way, and like the Kali-Yama big bore, that's completely different. That's more available, but maybe it doesn't have the same vibe as the old school Tamadzuru, and so the Tamadzuru feels special. Or here's a Imperator Zeta, that we took off of a Mech Buster fighter craft, and you gotta, you somehow shove that into a mech, even though it's, not supposed to go on a ground vehicle, but we stuck one there anyway, and it feels a certain way because of that. Like, I would have loved to explore, some of those things, or like the differences between, some garbage made by Quicksell versus something made by Defiance. You know?
Because in the game you just gravitate towards tier 5 or like clan, and you don't give a crap about the rest. It just becomes like pointless. You have another image there that really loved, that like that Firestarter busting in.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's what I'm saying. That great. Can you imagine a mission where you come in and you're having to fight off just poor infantry trying to, and you're just freaking flamethrowing these and you're trying to break out, or like, I just feel like that's a missed opportunity, not through PGI necessarily, but like those games and that sort of setting, I think would do interesting things. Like I said, I don't know if it sell well or whatever, but like there's the
one thing I would have also liked a whole bunch would be to dig down deeper into like the utility of the weapons, where it didn't just feel like, this is a thing that projects a sprite and does X damage. And I would have loved to have it where it was like, okay, this weapon, like, it does that for sure, but, it is also doing an effect that interacts with the environment in its own unique way. So if I have a flamethrower, it's going to do what you expect a flamethrower to do. And maybe, starting fires all over the place creates kind of like what they did in Mech Commander, where like if it's just far enough away, a forest fire shows up as a mech contact. So maybe you could use flamethrowers to distract the enemy or hide from targeting systems or something like that. Or, you could use them to boil a lake to create, a thing of vapor so that lasers don't hit you as hard. I don't know, like having more of those interactions, or like, having big weapons feel like, they put more impact on the target and more recoil on you, and, other things like that. Like I would love to have more, like, experience more like immersion in like the individual weapon systems and how they behave. Like, that's the kind of simulator
look at
aspects I like.
How Mech 5 starts off. You're in the Centurion, and I've argued the issue I've had with some of these games is the mech itself. The Centurion should be this war machine of death. You pull that trigger on the autocannon and it shouldn't just go boom.
Yeah.
Boom. It should be like, holy shit, I just unleashed hellfire. Same thing, the issue with like the lasers, how they did the duration and cooldown. And I just felt what it did is it caused other balance issues where you're always seeking just alpha strikes, a locust with a medium laser in your rear. You don't care. And then you have to just do wave upon wave. You have this, anyways. Whereas if you just made this character, if you will, this weapon system, just holy crap, an autocannon 10 or a medium autocannon or a heavy autocannon is actually just this visceral thing that just holy crap, and what are again, especially when you're doing like a single player game. Yes, you are going to have behind the scenes as a developer, you're going to have stuff variables like fire rate and ammo per whatever, and but I've sort of argued that is like the lack of holy crap, this thing is a absolute monster.
Yeah. I mean, an AC-20 is a auto loading, fast firing cannon, the weight of a dump truck. Like,
I've shot 120s. I've shot 120s in real life, and like I can't imagine being on something that can put rounds on target at a very fast rate. Like we could fire every
full auto Abrams.
We could fire every 4 or 5 second. I mean, you had a good crew, blah blah blah. You can slap them home, blah blah blah. But I can't imagine just like here's this hulking monstrosity, let alone even bigger caliber or whatever. Or I just felt like mechs themselves and just never felt violent enough. That's a good word, violent. It never.
I agree.
The Centurion at the beginning, it's just this like And of course it plays into like, not only do you feel, do you look violent, the animations play into it, the 3D model. It's not as, the concept art, by the way, for your Centurion is fucking phenomenal. How it looks just sleek and it looks like a Predator. And then you go into the game and, you know, it's like, it's like you and the girl, she says, or the guy, she says, don't worry about, you know, like, and you're like, you know, so
there was this back in the old forum days. I wish I knew what this guy was doing now. I haven't really kept track of the people from the old forum days, but there was this one poster that I think he had like a material sciences background, and he would just go and break down the mathematical implications, the physical implications of just the tabletop stats of BattleTech. And like some of that stuff got really goofy, but like when it did make sense, it was actually quite fascinating, because he was like, okay, well, this is how much, you know, how many megajoules of power you can infer from this particular weapon, because it has a direct analogy to a modern system that we know how much, you know, force that it could put. And if that one does this amount of damage, then we can infer, you know, based off of that, you know, this small laser is doing this much damage. And like, I think based off of the calculations, you know, your average small laser would be punching holes through an Abrams, basically. Like, that's how much force they have. So like a person would just get turned into pink mist, you know.
His upper torso would disappear and your legs would just, like, but you never quite like, get that violence in any of the games. Like, and that capture of that visceral, I mean, and you know, even like the descriptions in the novels, that's, you know, it talks about like, you know, Locust, like you can zoom in and it has got a really good electronic system where it can, maybe it's looking at like a few kilometers. Now you can't shoot that far, your targeting computer. Well, we run into that on the Abrams, is that like that round will go a lot further than your targeting computer can handle. So you have your effective, you know, max effective ranges. The round will keep going, but you just effectively can't engage that target, you know, accurately, right? You know, and then we had, at least we did, I never got to use it, but there was a tank at Lejeune that got the 50x magnification. So it could see 50x. We had a 1 power, 2 power, 1 power, 2, I think 1 power, I forgot which, I wasn't a gunner. But it had a 50x. You could pretty much read like name tapes on, you know, Marines for like, it was ridiculous. But they couldn't engage that far. And I've always sort of felt like, and again, you have to have a gameplay reason for it. But again, that goes back to you were saying like scouting and information, or like what makes that mech unique versus another? What makes a Locust unique compared to a Flea or a Mongoose or whatever other thing? And so like it would be those little details. Funny, I just saw someone who might be listening to this on the BattleTech forum. Someone was had posted the Marauder, and it was talking about the little nub right here, and they're like, "Oh, that's an antenna mount," and you can see images of other people bought, but like an antenna for what? But you in real life vehicles and real life, every little bit has a reason for being there. Whereas unfortunately, it's what looks cool.
You can't really simulate that.
Yeah, what looks cool. It's not like these are designed from the ground up by, you know, mechanical and, you know, engineers to, you know, blah, blah, blah. You have to wave your magic wand or whatever. But
I wish I had the background to be able to apply that knowledge, but I'm just trying my best off of.
No, I think what we're talking about is the lethality of this. And I'm just sort of like, I'm just take a Centurion and make it so it moves like a human and it's absolutely devastating, and then extrapolate that out, like, or whatever it is, like, and yeah, I get a PvP experience and stuff. You have to be very careful with balance. I mean, obviously we have MWO and 10 plus years of like understanding. Yes, it's complicated, especially, but yeah, I just, maybe if you had that, you wouldn't care as much about changing the autocannon or whatever. You wouldn't feel like you have to toss it out, or maybe you wouldn't even have that as a customization part because it's just freaking awesome.
So, I controversial opinion, but I think I think there are probably ways of dealing with the laser spam issue of BattleTech. And in my opinion, you could do that by making lasers less be about dealing direct damage to the target and being more of like, putting heat on the target, interfering with sensors. And yes, they do still hurt, but they're not like the primary damage dealers that they've always been. So that you're not just you're not relying on them for the direct boring of your target. Or maybe just making them suck for critical hits. I don't know. I just think lasers might be too good.
Well, I think what it is you have to go back to, are you talking about a match in MWO? In a match in MWO, you're going to load up on the one thing, right? Okay, I'm going to bring nothing but alarms, so I need a ton of ammo. I'm bringing just SRMs. I'm bringing all SRM ammo. Whereas if you take in the context of you're a merc and you just took a contract, and that contract is going to be 2 weeks, you bring ammo that you can, but then you're out. So do you want to mech? Like, you're going to be thinking, do I want to take a shot with that Centurion? Do I want to use that, or do I just make well, it depends. What's firing at me? Infantry? Yeah, I'm going to just use my lasers and just mow them down. I'm going to literally just, but I'm not firing my LRMs at a bunch of, idiots in the trees trying to snipe me with an SRM pack. The context there is what changes how to me, how you make those decisions. Like, because in a PvP sense, it comes down to just 7 large laser Novacat on Mech 4. That's all you needed, Yeah. And then we see the same thing repeated in MWO with PPCs and large lasers and Gauss, right? Then ERP and Gauss, and then AC. Like, we see the same thing happen. I think it's just because it's a different. Like, what do you
Well, the constraints aren't there. You don't have to worry about.
You don't have to worry about that. Yep.
So it doesn't become a limiting factor anymore. Okay. But
which is a huge part, like the clan invasion, Omnimex, the whole idea, like, hey, we're having a quick hard engagement, load up on ballistics and missiles, go.
Yeah.
At least that's what they hoped, and then they ran into, we're freaking out of ammo, and we, the enemy retreated, and then they're all of a sudden they're attacking, and we're out of ammo. Like, where's our logistics supply lines? You just don't have, and that's what's tough, is like balancing that.
It's hard to sell that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like express that in a way that like the average player can appreciate it, and not just, because some of the stuff we talk about, there's maybe like dozens of us.
Yeah, and also
like it.
Yeah, and then it's like,
it's stuck being those dozens of us.
Where Russ's problem is, because he's like, see, I told you, no one knows. He's saying one thing, he's saying another. But yeah, man, I don't envy any MechWarrior. It's a bummer too that like HBS went the way of the dodo, and like they chose the path they did. But because I do feel like there is so much in this IP that can be done, but whether it's financially feasible, that's another thing. I didn't know if you guys talked about that stuff behind the scenes, but like, it was news to me talking to Russ, and it was news to a lot of people, like, oh, Game Pass, 100,000 people played without paying your game, paying for it. Oh, that's like $5+ million just poof, gone. Like, it's like, oof, like, yeah. So,
I was not in on those meetings, but I think I may have heard something about that.
yeah. And then, Did and you can tell me if this is something you don't feel comfortable about. Did you notice any difference when EG7 came on the scene? Was there any shift? Did you notice anything?
Not really. Not at least not anything that affected me. Like I was mostly off in a little corner, just drawing mechs. But yeah, I wasn't. There's a lot of stuff that I just wasn't privy to because it wasn't really relevant to me.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not gonna sit here and ask you any crazy questions because that's not fair, and two, it's again, it's not really professional. Yeah, man, I feel like BattleTech MechWarrior it's weird because here I am talking to the guy that has reshaped the face of MechWarrior, and he's like, hey, anybody need some commission work? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then on the other side you have Catalyst, who's killing it. It's like it is a weird revitalization of BattleTech, but the gaming digital side of it is on this struggle bus, and it's like it's a weird, like, what is going on here? Yeah, that is weird. So
Yeah,
it's a wild ride, man. Like I said,
it is.
Obviously I wish you the best on wherever. Hopefully someone will contact you and get you some full-time. And you're up in Vancouver. Why are you still up in Vancouver? Do you know that Vancouver at one point, I don't know if it's still true, is the most expensive city to live in North America? You probably know that.
Yeah, I'm aware. I am aware. I try to keep my cost of living down, but yeah.
Are you gonna stay up there? Or are you like, this is home, or are you gonna come back?
It's kind of home. It's kind of home. Like my wife has a job up here, and this is just kind of where we live. So trying to make things work.
Gotcha, understood. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you're like, oh man, I've always wanted to tell this story? Or is there any? I think I covered the questions. Let me just double check. Obviously, we've covered what you're doing next. Just you're on the lookout for that, and you're continuing to. You talked about the Marauder. Let's see here. Oh yeah, why is the Urban Mecha trash can? You already mentioned that, but yeah, man, wild. Alex, I wish you the best. I hope we can maybe sit down and do this again. I'd love for you to, continue working BattleTech MechWarrior, but you have to go where the wind takes you, if you will. So that.
Thanks.
Yeah. I will have. Go ahead.
No, I just say I would love to talk again. Any excuse to talk mechs, like, we'll gladly take that up.
Well, I'm hoping that Russ needs you back, at least maybe commission, if they are going to do Mech Commander Mercenaries, because obviously I know they've got a lot of assets they could reuse, but that would be something, and maybe it'd be in launch. I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know. He's one thing that I think a lot of people like. I know a lot of people have opinions about Russ, but me knowing him for as long as I did, I think a lot of people misunderstand Russ. And the dude is intelligent. The dude is smart. And if you don't know that, and if you don't see that, I think you're playing right into the game. I don't know if he does. Anyways, it's just one of those things where him saying Mech Commander Mercenaries wasn't just a off the cuff thing. He doesn't release info like that for the hell of it. He also didn't clarify whether they're doing a Clans DLC. We got confirmation about a Mercs DLC. So I'm sure we'll see more of your work in that, probably. Did you have a backlog of stuff that you just left? Or
No, like the last thing I really did was the that splash image for the splash image with the Sunder
Thunder.
and the bushwhacker on it.
Yeah.
That would have been the last thing I did.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Alex, I gotta let you go. You get back
All right.
to life. I just want to say thank you again. I'll have, for anybody who's listening, I'll have links to your DeviantArt page and your Twitter as well, where they can reach out if they want to touch base with you, whether it's commission or just touch base or whatever with you. Is there anything else before we get off here, man? Is there anything?
No, not really. But no, pleasure talking to you. Maybe we'll talk again.
Yeah, man. I'll reach back out. Hopefully,
right.
it's better news, better circumstance.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Peace
Thank
out.
you again.
Bye-bye.